And it's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military, veterans, and Iona University basketball. And today we're going to do another talk with Iona legend, graduate class of '80, ESPN broadcaster, and that is Kevin Hamilton. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm great, Ken. Good to see you again.
Always good to see you and have our weekly talk on Iona basketball, and the Gales are playing well. They are back in first place all by themselves in the Metro Atlantic Conference. A couple of wins last weekend, and so they are looking pretty good. 20-7, 13-3. Win over Manhattan at home. Why don't we start there? What did you think of the win over Manhattan on last Friday night?
I thought it was a good win. Certainly, it was one that they needed to get. Manhattan hung around and did pretty well throughout the game, but Iona was just really too much for them inside, and certainly the play of Walter Clayton Jr. continues to be stellar. So, a really good win for them, and on to the next one.
Then Sunday they went down to Jersey City to play St. Peter's and came away with a 20-point win. They really were ahead by 15 to 20 points from fairly early in the game and held on. And this one was a little bit different because Walter Clayton got in foul trouble, didn't play much, getting 4 fouls. But Anton Brookshire came up and had a big game for Iona, the sophomore, and Nelly Jr. Joseph, 19 points, 10 rebounds. Nelly Jr. Joseph seems to me to be having a quiet but very consistent, high-level year, and he seems like his game is maturing from what I can see. He doesn't make the mistakes. If he gets the ball, he knows what to do. He makes smooth shots or plays. What do you think of Nelly Jr. Joseph this year?
Well, consistent is the operative word here. He's been this way for the majority of the year. He's had one or two low performance level games, but has rebounded and done very, very well since those games. Listen, Nelly is one of the major keys to this team going. I've often said it that I like to see him get the ball even more. He creates havoc on the inside. He's such a good free throw shooter that if he doesn't make easy baskets, he's going to get fouled. And he certainly opens up things for the guards to be able to do what they do best. So I'm very happy to see how he's playing and hope that it can continue throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, and of course, St. Peter's, a team that had such a successful run and unprecedented run in the NCAA tournament, 3 wins, getting to the Elite Eight, a storybook year. But then coach left, many of the players left. They're back to rebuilding. But boy, that was still a run that they had last year. That everyone's going to remember for generations.
Well, certainly all the teams in the MAAC, it gives them hope to know that if they can rise to the top and win the championship someday, that anything is possible. So kudos to them. But for the rest of this year, that team is gone, that coach is gone. Those dreams are in the past, and they're going to have to figure out what they do when they get down to the MAAC tournament to get a repeat performance.
Yeah, well, I think that's certainly something Iona is after, generating a win in the NCAA tournament and multiple wins. I think Coach Pitino would say he's seeking. One other story I thought from Friday night, Rasheen Stores came into Iona. We had a chance to visit with him afterwards. He seemed like he's done a lot with this team, considering he took over from Steve Masiello just about 10 days before the season started and lost one of their best players.
Yeah, he's done a very good job with that program, losing 2 of their best players, actually. And stepped right in, did what he had to do to keep stability in the Manhattan program. So I hope he gets a chance to stay there because he's shown that he's worthy, and get a chance to go out and recruit some players that can help get him to the top. I was very impressed with some of the play of their players. Cisse, the New York native, Roberts, the big fella in the middle. And certainly Nelson and the other guards were very, very good. So they're a player or two away from being able to, get to the top of the MAAC at some point.
Yeah, and speaking of being at the top of the MAAC, Iona 13-3, 2 games ahead. They were in third place just a couple of weeks ago. But Siena 11-5, Ryder 11-5, Quinnipiac 10-7, Niagara 9-8, Manhattan at 8-8. It's an interesting curve, but Iona has risen to the top and really playing their best basketball in February. They've won 7 straight, all 6 games in February. Last year, they were pretty much undefeated in January, but then slipped in February with several losses. Do you think Iona has peaked the way they would want to at this time of year?
I think Iona's winning the games they're supposed to win. So if you don't see me jumping up and down and celebrating, that's only because they're supposed to win those games. And the remaining schedule after this weekend becomes a little tough for the Gales. So it'll be interesting to see, prior to the MAAC tournament, how things settle. They're depleted on the bench at this moment with some injuries and some minor injuries that guys are going to have to play through. So a lot will be told over the next week, at least the next 10 days. But hey, I'm not surprised they're at the top. They're supposed to be. And, hopefully they can hold on and do what they have to do to get to the NCAA tournament.
Well, talking about what they have left, they're going to go travel their first trip to Mount St. Mary's in Maryland, just south of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, actually. In fact, some of the MAAC teams have taken tours of Gettysburg when they've made the trip down there, which is a nice thing to do. But they'll be down there Friday, and then they'll come home for a big game. I think it's going to be another big sellout, high-energy crowd on Sunday for Siena at 1 o'clock. Then they have a home game, which will be their senior day next Thursday, March 2nd. Guys, well, I guess it's good it's in March. The weather's going to get warmer. We're getting close to March Madness. But they'll have Marist home. Then they'll finish a week from Saturday at Ryder, which will be an interesting test as each team is prepping for the MAAC tournament. And how do you approach a game like that? Do you just go out like it's a normal game, or do you not want to show everything you may have up your sleeves for the tournament? How do you approach when you play, like the number 2 team right at the end of the season?
Yeah, you approach it like you want to win it. So I don't see any trickery or tomfoolery going on, when they show up to play any of these teams. The same thing goes for Siena. That's a very big game because I would say the championship is going to go through one of 4 teams, and Siena and Ryder are in that mix. I also think, as I mentioned, I think Quinnipiac is a dangerous team that people are going to have to look out for. And certainly Manhattan on any given night can be that team. But you don't go into these games thinking, well, I'm going to hold back and not show some plays, because you don't have the luxury of doing that. The last thing you want to do is try that and then get blown out or get beat on your home court going into the tournament. And then, what do you do to recover? So, and that's not in Coach Pitino's DNA, that I can tell you. He thinks he's an open book. He'll show you exactly how he's going to play. And if you can beat him, beat him. But he's not going to play any games. He's going to go to win those games.
I agree with you. Now, one of the things that Coach Pitino has been talking about is changing the format of the MAAC tournament and having the preliminary and quarterfinal rounds at home sites of the top 4 teams in the quarterfinals, which I think it might be a good idea. He pointed out the attendance at some of the MAAC tournament sites hasn't been tremendous. And I kind of like that format. It was popular when you and I were in college to have tournaments like that where you would play campus sites. And then I'm thinking of the what was then the ECAC hockey tournament. You'd have the semis and finals at the Boston Garden. which everybody wanted to go to at that point. So we'll see. Would you like to see a change in the MAAC tournament format?
So openly and honestly, I don't really care. I think the best teams are going to win, and that just means you have to play your best. Certainly, it's a really good home court advantage for Iona if they were able to do that. But if they're not making shots and not doing the things that got them there, it's not going to matter where you play the game. And then for me, listen, I would say if you got to get players excited to play these games to qualify for the NCAA tournament, then you probably need to go recruit some different players. Again, it doesn't matter where you play. It matters how you play. And I think that's really the key to it all. If Iona was in last place, I don't think that would be the preferential way to do it. So,
Well,
they should just.
Yeah, you don't want to travel on the road to those games, but I think from a fan's point of view, you have tremendous energy at those playoff games if you can get a home game, and you'd have a sellout, and then everybody, if you win, then everybody's charged up to go to travel to the site of the semis, on a Friday or weekend date. So we'll see what the new commissioner wants to do, and see what next year. But this year it's going to be Atlantic City, and looking forward to going down there. And I think it's going to be a tournament. I know it's going to maybe take a different perspective than last year. Come out ready to play in the first round, and take care of business like they've been in the second half of the season, especially this February. Hey, they're by the way, 58th. They're back up in the RPIs. It had been as high as 37th early in the year, and they're ahead of teams like Pittsburgh, TCU, Illinois, Iowa, Wake Forest with the 7 straight wins. So that's going to help them possibly if they get to the NCAA tournament as far as getting a seed where they have they're not playing a top 10 team in the first round.
Well, you would think so, but you don't know that. The people who sit in that room, in the committee room, if they look at, do I give TCU an 8 seed or Iona an 8 seed? That's an easy one, So, I would love to see Iona be ranked higher. In the past, I've thought there were some Iona teams that certainly deserved that recognition but didn't get it. So you just never know. But I think, the first step is to get there. So
yeah.
That's what I would say. They can worry about all that other stuff, after selection Sunday, their name is selected, and then they can worry about where they get a seed and who they play. But, in a one big conference, traditionally like the MAAC, you got to get there first.
And the Iona women continue to play very, very well, dominating in first place in the MAAC conference. They're 20-5, 15-1. Billi Chambers doing very well. They won last week at Mount St. Mary's 50-37. And I asked Coach Pitino about success of this year's Iona women's team, and he was highly complimentary of Billi Chambers, and he said that she had really gone out and gotten some players that can make a difference in the program. And so they have their own 3-game set in Atlantic City to look forward to. How do you see them getting through the MAAC tournament this year?
I'm elated for Billi. She's a wonderful lady, first of all, and a very, very good coach. Has been for many years for Iona. If you remember back in the old days, where the night before the men's finals was usually the ladies' finals, it was tradition for the Iona women to defeat their opponent and then come celebrate while the guys defeated their opponent as well. I'd love to see that format again, by the way, especially like you mentioned at home courts where the ladies and the guys would play on the same evening. I think that would be great. I don't think the women's program gets enough recognition. They've been good for many years. They've been down for a few years, but kudos to Billi and her staff for doing what it takes to get back to the top. But like anything, for me, make the tournament. That's what it's really all about. I don't think anything less than that would be rewarding for them this year.
Well, it would be again an extraordinary thing if both the men and women's teams from Iona made the NCAA's this year. They did a few years back, and so we'll look forward to seeing the women from basketball team from Iona down in Atlantic City. So good key weekend for Iona basketball. See if they can continue the efforts they've been making. With the trip to Mount St. Mary's Friday and coming home for a big home game against, as you said, against Siena. It'll be another sellout, high energy crowd. One of their rivals. Siena's one of those teams. They play in a big arena. They draw a lot of people to their games. That is looking to get back to the top of the MAAC, and so this will be one of those days where we will see who's who can prevail. Obviously, when Iona went up to Siena, they lost badly, probably their worst loss of the year, worst performance. So do you think, I'm sure the Iona players want to avenge that loss up in Siena and just show that it was an aberration.
Well, yeah, I would think this is a very important game for the players. Pride is on the line. You got to remember also, Siena was missing one of their better players that game as well. Their point guard was out with an injury and didn't play. I know he's back. So a healthier Siena against an Iona team that's playing pretty well should make for a very, very good contest. And I look forward to calling the game with a lot of excitement.
So you're doing the call for ESPN on Sunday. That's great.
I definitely am. I look forward to that.
That'll be fun. We'll see you there. Any other thoughts this week on what's happening in college basketball that you see?
So let me just go back to something that I've seen on Facebook recently. Many people celebrating 43 years ago, the Iona victory at Madison Square Garden against Louisville. Really nice to see that recognition. And it's pretty interesting to look at a lot of the comments. You have people that have comments about what they only remember. But for someone who played in the game, I can tell you it was a very special time. And there are many reasons for Iona fans to celebrate that. Some of us former players who had really good games that day appreciate all the support and the love. And maybe 43 years from now, we'll be celebrating something else.
Well, that is a great night. I was there with my friend Scott McLeod, who was a classmate of yours, actually. He had started Rhode Island, finished after a health issue, finished close to home. He and I were both from Pelham, and he and I took the train down. That's how I remember taking the train down to New York to Madison Square Garden for a big game, and the buzz in the arena on a night like that. What was Jim Valvano like? What did he say to you before the game, during the game that made a difference?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And Coach Valvano was very loose at all times. He had a remarkable way of keeping you light and loose and just trying to perform at your highest level. And I will tell you this, though, he didn't have to say anything to us. We went there with the intentions. I have an article that I actually kept from all those years ago when a reporter asked me after the game, what do we think about upset and surprising the number 2 team in the country? And I said, well, it wasn't a surprise to us. It might have been a surprise to 19,000 other people, but we knew we could come in and beat them. And that's exactly how we felt all year long. You got to remember, we started my senior year on the road playing against Texas A&M, Long Beach State, Kentucky, University of San Francisco. So none of this was, overwhelming to us. And as we played and got better and went on that 18-game winning streak against highly national competition, we weren't surprised. So that's may sound cocky or arrogant, but it wasn't. We showed up, we did what we had to do, and we kept it moving. And
you got your class the next morning too. I always enjoy when you tell that story that you got to your 8 o'clock class the next morning. So important that you maintained your education and your classwork while you were playing big time college basketball. Anything
Well,
else?
Dr. Holland would have it no other way. I'm sure he watched the game and was a supporter, but I know that 8 a.m. class the next day where he wants to talk about economics.
Yeah, I think I had Dr. Holland in graduate school at Iona a few
Hmm.
years later when I did my MBA there. Well,
Yeah.
Kevin, great to see you. We're glad you called in the game on Sunday when Iona hosts Siena, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the Heinz Center. And we'll watch Iona go down to play Mount St. Mary's on Friday night. I actually know the president of Mount St. Mary's, former dean at West Point, Brigadier General Tim Trainer, great guy. And we're going to see if we can catch up with him before the end of the season. So anyway, good to see you. You have a good day, and we'll do this again very soon.
All the best. Good talking to you.
Thanks, Kevin. That's Kevin Hamilton, Iona class of 80 grad, member of the team that defeated Louisville in a memorable night at Madison Square Garden just 43 years ago, and now an ESPN broadcaster and very successful in business post his Iona basketball career. Kevin, we'll talk soon.
Take care, Ken.
Okay, this is Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. We cover cadets, midshipmen, military, and veterans. You can watch or listen to our show on WVOX. We do every Monday at 2:30 with my colleague Jack McGurk. Actually, we have a special guest this week, Dr. Richard Haas from the Council on Foreign Relations. So have a good day, and thank you all for watching.